Captain Jake Morrison checked his watch for the third time in 10 minutes. The supply run to Kepler 442b was supposed to be routine, just another boring trip to drop off families and supplies at the agricultural colony. His ship, the New Horizon, carried 37 civilians, including 12 children, who were moving to the frontier world with their parents. The kids ranged from little Emma Patterson, who was only 6 years old, to Marcus Johnson, who had just turned 16. Emma spent most of the trip playing with her stuffed bear and asking her mother when they would see the new planet. Marcus tried to act grown-up, but Jake could see the excitement in his eyes whenever he looked out the observation windows at the stars. Jake had been making runs like this for 15 years. He knew every shipping lane, every asteroid field, every safe harbor between Earth and the outer colonies. The route to Kepler 442b was one of the safest in human space. Pirates rarely bothered with agricultural transports because the cargo was mostly farming equipment and families with not much money. That morning, Jake was drinking his coffee in the captain's chair when his sensor officer called out, "Captain, I'm picking up 3 ships coming out of the crater asteroid field. They're not responding to standard identification requests." Jake set down his coffee cup and leaned forward. The crater field was a known hiding spot for smugglers and pirates, but most of them were smart enough to avoid attacking human ships. There were rules about these things, unwritten laws that even the worst criminals followed. "What kind of ships?" Jake asked. "Zaltharian design, sir. Raider-class vessels. They're moving fast and heading straight for us." Jake's blood went cold. The Zaltharians were reptilian creatures who had been raiding ships for decades. They were known for taking slaves and stealing cargo, but they followed the same rules as everyone else. They might take adults as slaves, they might kill crew members who fought back, but they never touched children. No one in the galaxy touched children. "Send out a distress signal," Jake ordered. "All frequencies. Tell them we have civilians aboard, including 12 children." The communications officer worked frantically at her console. "Signal sent, Captain." No response from the raiders. Jake watched the tactical display as the 3 Zaltharian ships closed in. His transport had no weapons and no way to outrun military vessels. All he could do was hope the pirates would follow the rules. "This is Captain Morrison of the civilian transport New Horizon," he broadcast on an open channel. "We are carrying civilian families, including children. We have no cargo of value. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." The reply came in the harsh, clicking language of the Zaltharians, then switched to standard galactic common. "Human vessel, prepare to be boarded. Do not resist, and you will not be harmed." Jake felt a small relief. They were talking, which meant they weren't planning to just blow the ship apart. "Understood, we will not resist. Please remember we have children aboard." "Your children are noted," came the reply. The boarding happened quickly. The Zaltharian raiders cut through the airlock with military precision. They were tall, scaled creatures with large eyes and sharp teeth. Their leader wore the markings of a ship captain and carried a weapon that hummed with energy. "All adults to the cargo bay," the leader commanded. "Children remain in passenger section." Jake felt another wave of relief. They were separating the children, which meant they were following protocol. Children would be left behind when the raiders took the adults. It was how these things worked. The adults were herded into the cargo bay, where they were forced to sit on the floor. Jake could hear some of the women crying, and he saw the fear in everyone's eyes, but at least the children were safe. "You have 26 adults aboard," the Zaltharian leader said, consulting a device in his clawed hand. "Good specimens. You will bring fair prices in the slave markets." "The children," Jake said carefully. "You're leaving them behind, right?" "They'll be found by the rescue ships." The Zaltharian leader looked at him with those large, cold eyes. "The children come with us." Jake's heart stopped. "What? No, you can't." "There are rules. No one touches children, ever." "Rules change," the leader replied. "Children are valuable too. Younger slaves adapt better, learn faster. The markets have demand." "You can't do this," Jake stood up, forgetting about the weapon pointed at him. It's the one law everyone follows. You take adults, you leave children. That's how it works. The energy weapon fired, and Jake fell to the floor. The other adults screamed, and some tried to rush forward, but more weapons appeared. The Zeltharians were professionals. They had done this many times before. The old rules were made by weak species, the leader said. We are strong. We take what we want. From the passenger section came the sound of children crying. Little Emma Patterson was screaming for her mother. Marcus Johnson was trying to calm the younger ones, but his voice was shaking with fear. The raiders worked quickly. They stunned the adults who resisted and dragged them toward the airlocks. The children were carried separately, still conscious but terrified. Jake watched helplessly as Emma reached out for her mother, her stuffed bear falling to the floor. Please, Jake whispered through the pain from the energy blast. Don't do this. You're breaking the one rule that keeps the galaxy from tearing itself apart. The Zeltharian leader paused at the airlock. Your human government is weak. Your military is scattered across 100 worlds. Who will stop us? They'll come, Jake said. When they find out what you've done, they'll come for you. The leader made a sound that might have been laughter. Let them come. We will be long gone, and your precious children will be working in the deep mines where no one will ever find them. The raiders left the ship drifting in space with its engines dead and life support failing. Jake lay on the cargo bay floor, listening to the emergency systems beeping their warnings. He was badly injured but alive, and he had managed to keep the distress beacon active. 6 hours later, the rescue ships arrived. They found Jake barely conscious and the ship's systems failing. The other crew members were dead or dying. The passengers were gone, all of them. The children, Jake whispered to the rescue team leader. They took the children. The rescue team leader, a woman named Lisa Rodriguez from the Colonial Security Force, knelt beside him. How many children? 12, ages 6 to 16. They took them all. Lisa Rodriguez went very quiet. She had been working colonial security for 20 years. She had seen pirates, smugglers, and raiders of every species. But she had never seen anyone take children. Are you sure? She asked. Maybe the children were killed in the fighting. Jake shook his head weakly. No, they took them alive. Said they were valuable. Said the rules had changed. Lisa stood up slowly. She walked to her communications officer and spoke in a low voice. Send a priority message to Earth Command. Full encryption. Tell them the Zeltharians have taken human children. Tell them the one rule has been broken. The message traveled through space at the speed of light, jumping from relay station to relay station. Within hours it reached Earth, then spread to every human world, every colonial outpost, every ship in the void. The Zeltharians had made a mistake. They had assumed that because humans were peaceful, they were weak. They had forgotten that humans were peaceful by choice, not by nature. They had forgotten what humans were like when someone threatened their young. They were about to remember. Admiral Rebecca Stone stood in the war room of Terran Command, her hands gripping the edge of the holographic display table. The message from the Kepler 442b rescue team had arrived 3 hours ago, and she had read it 17 times. 12 human children taken by Zeltharian raiders. The one rule that had kept galactic civilization stable for 3,000 years had been broken around her. The most senior military officers in human space were arriving for the emergency meeting. General Alex Parker came in first, still wearing his dress uniform from some ceremony he had abandoned. Commander Paul Martinez followed, his deep space reconnaissance unit having been recalled from the Outer Rim. Dr. Kevin Shaw, the civilian representative, looked pale and worried as he took his seat. Tell me this is some kind of mistake, General Parker said as he studied the report. Tell me those reptilian bastards didn't actually take our children. Admiral Stone turned the holographic display to show the crime scene data. The empty passenger section of the New Horizon, the children's belongings scattered on the floor, the testimony from Captain Morrison, who was now recovering in a medical facility. 12 children, she said quietly. Emma Patterson, age 6. Marcus Johnson, age 16. 10 others ranging between those ages. All taken alive by Zeltharian raiders who told the ship's captain that the old rules no longer applied. Dr. Shaw cleared his throat nervously. Admiral, I've been in contact with the Galactic Council. They're calling for an emergency session. The Zeltharian Confederacy is already claiming this was the work of rogue elements, unauthorized raiders who don't represent their government. Rogue elements? Admiral Stone repeated, her voice flat and dangerous. That's their excuse for breaking the most fundamental law of civilized space. They're offering to conduct an internal investigation, Dr. Shaw continued. They say they'll find the raiders and return the children through proper diplomatic channels. Commander Martinez looked up from his tactical display. How long do these diplomatic channels usually take, Doctor? Well, there are procedures to follow. Evidence to gather, jurisdictional issues to resolve. The Galactic Council moves carefully on matters like this. How long? Martinez asked again. Dr. Shaw shifted uncomfortably. Months, possibly years. But that's how civilized species handle these situations. Admiral Stone walked to the large window. That looked out over the military shipyards. Hundreds of vessels were docked there, from small patrol craft to massive battleships. The pride of human engineering, all of it built to protect human space and human lives. Doctor, she said without turning around, how many children do you have? 2 daughters, Admiral. Ages 8 and 12. And if someone took them, how long? Would you want to wait for diplomatic channels to bring them home? Dr. Shaw was quiet for a long moment. I understand your position, Admiral, but we have to consider the larger implications. If we respond with military force, it could destabilize the entire galactic community. General Parker stood up suddenly. The galactic community is already destabilized. They took our children. Our kids, that's not something you negotiate about. Commander Martinez pulled up intelligence files on his screen. I've been monitoring Zeltharian communications since the incident. They're not just claiming this was unauthorized. They're actively trying to distance themselves from the raiders. Their government is scared. Good, Admiral Stone said, finally turning back to face the room. They should be scared. She activated the main display, showing a map of human space. Red dots marked the locations of military installations, blue dots showed colonial settlements, and green dots represented the massive defense fleets stationed throughout human territory. Gentlemen, Doctor, I want you to understand something, she said. For over 2 centuries, humanity has been peaceful members of the galactic community. We've followed their rules, respected their customs, participated in their endless committees and negotiations. We've shown them that we can be civilized, that we can be diplomatic, that we can be reasonable. The room fell silent except for the hum of the electronics. But they've made a critical error in judgment. They've forgotten what we were before. We reached the stars. They've forgotten that we evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill us. They've forgotten that we didn't become the dominant species on Earth through diplomacy and committee meetings. She gestured to the display, showing Earth's defense networks. They've forgotten that we are predators who chose to be civilized. And the one thing you never, ever do to a predator is threaten its young. General Parker nodded grimly. What are your orders, Admiral? Send a message to every human world, every colonial outpost, every ship in the void. Full military mobilization. I want every captain, every soldier, every pilot to understand that 12 human children are in the hands of aliens who think they can break our most sacred law. Dr. Shaw stood up quickly. Admiral, with respect, full mobilization means war. The Galactic Council will never approve military action over 12 individuals. Admiral Stone looked at him with cold eyes. Doctor, the Galactic Council doesn't get to vote on how we protect our children. This isn't about politics or territory or trade agreements. This is about the fact that somewhere in the dark between the stars, 12 human children are crying for their parents. Commander Martinez was already working at his console. Admiral, we have over 800 ships available for immediate deployment. Response times will vary, but we can have the first wave at the Zeltharian border within 72 hours. Do it, Admiral Stone ordered. And send a message to the Zeltharian Confederacy. Tell them they have 24 hours to return our children unharmed to human space. And if they refuse? General Parker asked. Then we remind them why there was a rule about not touching human young in the first place. Dr. Shaw was frantically typing on his tablet. Admiral, I must protest this course of action. The economic implications alone could destabilize dozens of worlds. The Galactic Council will impose sanctions, possibly even expel humanity from the galactic community. Admiral Stone walked over to where he sat. Doctor, let me explain something to you. Every human parent in the galaxy right now is thinking about their own children. They're wondering if some alien raiders might decide to take them next. They're asking themselves whether their government will protect them or hide behind diplomatic procedures. She leaned closer. Do you think any human parent cares about economic sanctions when their children are in danger? Do you think they care about the Galactic Council's opinion when alien creatures are holding human kids as slaves? Dr. Shaw looked around the room for support, but found only hard faces and determined eyes. The mobilization order goes out immediately, Admiral Stone continued. Every human in the galaxy will know that when our children are threatened, we don't negotiate. We don't wait for committees. We don't hope for the best. She turned back to the display showing the locations of human military assets. We come for them, all of us, and we don't stop until we bring them home. The war room erupted into activity as officers began coordinating the largest military mobilization in human history. Messages flew through space at light speed carrying orders to distant commanders and colonial governors. Within hours, every human world would know what had happened, and more importantly, what humanity planned to do about it. In the depths of space, 12 human children waited in darkness, not knowing that their entire species was coming to save them. The Zeltharian homeworld of Vorthak had never seen anything like it. High Counselor Thexara writhed in his ceremonial chambers as the reports flooded in from across Zeltharian space. The humans were coming, and they were bringing everything. They had how many ships? He demanded of his aide, Kethova, who was frantically updating the tactical displays. Over 800 confirmed, High Counselor. The number keeps growing as more vessels join the formation. Our deep space sensors show they're converging from 12 different star systems. Thexara's scaled hide rippled with fear. In all his years of leadership, he had never seen such a massive military response. The humans were mobilizing their entire fleet for 12 missing children. It made no sense from a military standpoint, but then again, humans rarely made sense to other species. Contact the raider captain who took the human young, Thexara ordered. Tell him to return them immediately. Tell him this madness ends now. Kethova worked at his console for several minutes before looking up with worried eyes. High Counselor, Captain Vexthal is not responding to our communications. His ship and the other 2 raider vessels have gone dark? Then find them, Thexara snarled. Send every patrol ship we have into the outer systems. Those fools have doomed us all. 3 star systems away, Captain Greg Sullivan stood on the bridge of the human destroyer Retribution, watching the massive fleet formation through the main view screen. Ships kept arriving from every direction, answering the call that had gone out from Earth Command. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, even civilian vessels that had been hastily armed with military equipment. Sir, his tactical officer reported, we now have confirmation of 947 vessels in the formation. Admiral Stone's flagship is requesting all captains to report readiness status. Greg looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They were all volunteers, men and women who had signed up for what military command was calling Operation Broken Rule. Everyone knew what that meant. This wasn't about territory or politics. This was about bringing their children home. Signal, the Admiral, Greg ordered. The Retribution is ready for combat operations. Similar reports were coming in from ships throughout the fleet. The carrier Freedom's Light, the battleship New York, the cruiser Pacific Thunder. Every captain was reporting the same thing. Their crews were ready. Their weapons were charged, and they were prepared to follow their orders no matter where they. Ellie, Admiral Stone, stood in the command center of her flagship, watching the tactical displays that showed human ships spreading out across Zeltharian space. She had given the Zeltharians 24 hours to return the children. That deadline had passed 6 hours ago with no response. Admiral, Commander Martinez reported, our reconnaissance ships have identified the most likely locations for the raiders to be hiding. Intelligence suggests they've taken the children to abandoned mining facilities in the Kepler sector. Why there? Admiral Stone asked. It's isolated, difficult to search, and has the infrastructure to support prisoners for extended periods. Our xenopsychology experts say it fits the Zeltharian raider mindset perfectly. Admiral Stone studied the star charts showing the Kepler sector. Dozens of abandoned mining stations scattered across asteroid fields and dead worlds. It would take time to search them all, but time was something they had to make. Deploy search teams to every facility in the sector, she ordered. I want Marines on every station, every asteroid, every piece of floating metal big enough to hide a child. The search began immediately. Human Marines in advanced combat suits moved through the darkness of space, checking abandoned facilities that had been empty for decades. The first station yielded nothing but old mining equipment and empty corridors. The second had been recently occupied, but whoever had been there was long gone. Colonel Nancy Wright led the assault on the third station, a massive facility built into a hollowed-out asteroid. Her Marines moved with practiced efficiency, their suits making them nearly invisible to most sensor systems. They found evidence of recent habitation, food containers, worn clothing, and most importantly, a small stuffed bear that one of the Marines recognized from the passenger manifest of the New Horizon. Emma Patterson's bear, Colonel Wright reported. To Admiral Stone, they were here, but they've been moved. How long ago? Admiral Stone asked. Our forensics team estimates 6 to 8 hours. They're staying ahead of us, but not by much. The pattern continued across the sector. The raiders were moving the children from station to station, always staying just ahead of the human search teams. But each abandoned facility provided more clues, more evidence of where they might be heading. On the fourth station, the Marines found actual prisoners, though not human ones. 3 Altarian civilians and a Centauri merchant had been held there as slaves. They were weak and frightened, but they had valuable information. The human young, the Centauri merchant said in broken galactic common. They were brought here 2 days ago. The raiders spoke of a place called the Depths of Sorrow, a fortress where they keep their most valuable prisoners. Colonel Wright contacted Admiral Stone immediately. Admiral, we have a location. The Depths of Sorrow, somewhere in the inner asteroid belt. Our freed prisoners say it's heavily defended and built into the core of a massive asteroid. Can they give us coordinates? Approximate location only? They were blindfolded during transport, but they remember the asteroid field where they were held before being moved to the mining stations. Admiral Stone called up the star charts for the inner asteroid belt. Thousands of asteroids, many of them large enough to contain hidden facilities. But now they had a name and a general location. It was more than they had before. All ships, this is Admiral Stone, she broadcast to the fleet. We have a target. The facility known as the Depths of Sorrow in the inner asteroid belt. This is where our children are being held. The response from the fleet was immediate. Captain after captain reported their readiness to assault the facility. The battleships moved into bombardment positions while the smaller ships prepared for close range fighting. The Marines loaded into assault shuttles, checking their weapons and equipment one final time, but as the human fleet approached the asteroid belt, they found something unexpected. The Zeltharian military had finally responded to the crisis. Their battle fleet, over 300 ships strong, was moving to intercept the human formation. Admiral, Commander Martinez reported, Zeltharian fleet approaching from the 4th planet. They're demanding we withdraw from their space immediately. Admiral Stone looked at the tactical display showing the approaching enemy ships. The Zeltharian fleet was formidable, but they were outnumbered more than 3-1 by the human formation. "Open a channel to the Zeltharian fleet, Commander," she ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing a Zeltharian military officer in full battle dress. "I am Fleet Commander Zaxthal of the Zeltharian Defense Force. You are in violation of our territorial space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Admiral Stone stepped forward. "I am Admiral Rebecca Stone of the Human Defense Force. We are here to retrieve 12 human children who were taken by your raiders. Return them immediately and we will withdraw. We have no knowledge of these children. This is an internal matter for the Zeltharian government to resolve." "The time for internal matters has passed," Admiral Stone replied. "Our children are being held in the facility known as the Depths of Sorrow. We're going to get them back." "Fleet?" Commander Zaxthal's scaled face showed surprise at the mention of the facility's name. "That information is classified." "How did you—" "It doesn't matter how we know," Admiral Stone interrupted. "What matters is that you're standing between us and our children. Move aside or we'll move you aside." The Zeltharian commander looked at his tactical displays, no doubt seeing the overwhelming number of human ships surrounding his fleet. "You cannot threaten the sovereignty of Zeltharian space. We will defend our territory." "Then you've chosen," Admiral Stone said, and cut the communication. The battle that followed was brief but decisive. The human fleet fought with cold efficiency, their ships working in perfect coordination to overwhelm the Zeltharian defenses. This wasn't rage or anger driving them. It was something far more dangerous, the calculated determination of parents who would do anything to save their children. Within 2 hours, the Zeltharian fleet was scattered and broken. The way to the asteroid belt was clear, and 12 human children were waiting to be rescued. The Depths of Sorrow was a nightmare of twisted metal and living rock, built deep inside the hollowed core of a massive asteroid. Lieutenant Commander Steve Rogers studied the facility through his helmet display as his assault team approached in stealth shuttles. The structure had been designed as an impregnable fortress, with multiple layers of defenses and weapon systems powered by the asteroid's own mineral resources. "Teams Alpha through Delta, report status," Steve commanded through his comm system. "Alpha." "Team in position at the main docking bay," came the first reply. "Beta team ready at the secondary entrance," followed another. "Charlie team standing by at the ventilation access points." "Delta team positioned at the power distribution center." Steve had spent 3 weeks studying the facility's blueprints, looking for weaknesses that could be exploited. The attack had to be fast and coordinated. If the raiders realized they were under assault, they might kill the children rather than let them be rescued. "All teams, remember your priorities," Steve broadcast. "Primary objective is the safe recovery of 12 human children. Secondary objective is capture of the raiders for intelligence gathering. Everything else is expendable." The assault began at exactly 0400 hour station time. Steve's demolition specialists had identified structural weak points where shaped charges could breach the facility's outer hull without compromising the life support systems inside. 6 different explosions occurred simultaneously, creating multiple entry points and overwhelming the defenders. Steve led Alpha Team through the main breach, his Marines moving with the deadly efficiency that came from years of training. Their advanced combat suits made them nearly invisible to most sensor systems, and their weapons were designed specifically for fighting in enclosed spaces without damaging critical systems. The first defenders they encountered were Zeltharian security guards who had clearly not expected a full military assault on their hidden fortress. They fired a few wild shots before being taken down by precise energy bolts from the Marine weapons. Steve's team moved deeper into the facility, following the blueprints toward the sections most likely to house prisoners. "Charlie team to command," came a voice through the comm system. "We've secured the ventilation systems. No sign of the children in the upper levels?" "Delta team here," another voice reported. "Power center is under our control. We're reading life signs in the lower sections. Grid reference 77 Alpha." Steve checked his tactical display. Grid 77 Alpha was Deep in the facility's core, in what the blueprints labeled as high-security storage, all teams converge on 7-7 Alpha. That's where our kids are. The Marines fought their way through increasingly heavy resistance as they moved deeper into the facility. The Raiders had clearly prepared for the possibility of attack, but they had not expected such overwhelming force. Steve's teams moved like a machine, each Marine knowing exactly what to do and when to do it. "Contact front," called one of his Marines as they approached the high-security section. Heavy blast doors, multiple defensive positions. Steve moved forward to assess the situation. The corridor ahead was blocked by massive metal doors that would take time to breach. Behind those doors, the Raiders had set up defensive positions with energy weapons and barriers. "Beta team, what's your status?" Steve asked. "We found another route to the high-security section," came the reply. "Maintenance tunnels that bypass the main blast doors. We can hit them from behind while you assault the front?" "Do it," Steve ordered. "Coordinate your attack with ours." On my mark, the assault on the high-security section was brief but intense. Beta team emerged from the maintenance tunnels just as Alpha team breached the blast doors from the front. The Raiders, caught between two forces, surrendered quickly rather than risk a prolonged firefight that might harm their valuable prisoners. Steve and his Marines pushed through the final corridors toward the holding cells. The facility's designers had built this section like a prison, with individual cells connected by narrow hallways. Steve's heart was pounding as he approached the first cell door. Inside, he found them 12 human children, ages 6 to 16, huddled together in a space barely large enough for half that number. They were dirty and scared, but alive. Little Emma Patterson was crying softly while clutching a torn piece of cloth that might once have been part of her stuffed bear. Marcus Johnson had his arms around two of the younger children, trying to protect them even though he was clearly terrified himself. "This is Lieutenant Commander Rogers, United Earth Marines," Steve announced as he opened the cell door. "We're here to take you home." The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Some of the children started crying with relief, others cheered, and a few simply collapsed from exhaustion and stress. Emma Patterson ran toward Steve and grabbed onto his armored leg, refusing to let go. "Are you real?" asked 10-year-old Danny Morrison, the ship captain's nephew. "The bad lizard said no one was coming for us." "We're real," Steve assured him, kneeling down so he was at the children's eye level. "And we're taking you back to your families right now." Marcus Johnson stepped forward, trying to maintain the dignity of his 16 years despite the tears running down his face. "Sir, they've been moving us around a lot. There might be other prisoners here? Other kids from different species." Steve nodded approvingly. Even after everything he had been through, Marcus was thinking about others who might need help. "We'll find them too." "Can you help us locate where they might be held?" The rescue of the other prisoners took another hour. The Marines found 17 beings from various species, all of whom had been captured by the Raiders over the past several months. None of them were human children, but they were all someone's family members who deserved to go home as the children were loaded onto medical shuttles for transport back to the fleet. Steve received a communication from Admiral Stone. "Commander Rogers, this is Admiral Stone. Report status." "Mission accomplished, Admiral. All 12 children recovered safely. They're tired and scared, but unharmed. We also rescued 17 other prisoners from various species." There was a pause before Admiral Stone responded, and when she did, her voice carried emotions that she had been holding back for days. "Outstanding work, Commander. Bring our children home." The medical shuttles docked with the fleet's hospital ships where teams of doctors and counselors were waiting. The children were given full medical examinations and found to be in surprisingly good health. The Raiders had kept them fed and provided basic care, treating them as valuable cargo rather than people. Emma Patterson was reunited with her mother via video link while doctors checked her over. The little girl's face lit up when she saw her mother on the screen. As she started talking rapidly about everything that had happened to her, Marcus Johnson insisted on speaking with Admiral Stone personally. When the connection was established, he stood at attention despite wearing a hospital gown. "Admiral, I want you to know that we never gave up hope. We knew you would come for us." "How did you know?" Admiral Stone asked. "Because you're humans." Marcus replied simply, "And humans don't leave their people behind." The medical teams worked through the night to ensure all the children were healthy and ready for transport home. Counselors spoke with each child individually, helping them process what they had experienced and preparing them for reunion with their families. But even as the children were being cared for, Admiral Stone was making decisions that would change the galaxy forever. The rescue was complete, but this was far from over. The Zeltharians had broken the most fundamental rule of civilized space, and simply getting the children back was not enough. She gave orders for the fleet to continue its mission. The galaxy needed to understand that there were consequences for threatening human young. Consequences that would be remembered for generations to come. The 12 children were safe, but the lesson was just beginning. The Zeltharian Confederacy surrendered 3 days after the children were rescued, but Admiral Stone had already given orders for the fleet to continue its mission. The rescue was complete, but the lesson was not. Throughout Zeltharian space, human forces moved with surgical precision, dismantling military installations and industrial complexes that could threaten other species in the future. The humans did not target civilian populations or non-military facilities. They followed the rules of war that they had always respected. But every Zeltharian military base, every weapons factory, every shipyard that could build warships was systematically destroyed. It would take the Zeltharians generations to rebuild their military capacity. Back in human space, the rescued children were being returned to their families in ceremonies that were broadcast across dozens of worlds. The images of tearful reunions spread through the galaxy faster than the news of the military campaign. Every species in known space watched as human parents embraced their children who had been given up for lost. Emma Patterson ran into her mother's arms at the spaceport on New Terra, her small legs carrying her as fast as they could across the docking bay. Her mother dropped to her knees and swept the little girl into a hug that seemed to last forever. Emma's father stood behind them with tears streaming down his face, finally able to breathe again after weeks of fear and uncertainty. "Mommy, I knew you would come," Emma said into her mother's shoulder. "The scary lizard said no one was coming, but I knew you would find me." Marcus Johnson's reunion with his father took place aboard the colony ship Freedom's Dream, where the family had been relocated after the attack. The 16-year-old tried to act mature and controlled, but when he saw his father waiting for him, he broke down and ran to him like the child he still was underneath all his attempts at grown-up behavior. "I tried to take care of the little ones," Marcus told his father. "I tried to keep them brave like you taught me." "You did perfect, son," his father replied. "You did everything right." Similar scenes played out across human space as the other 10 children were returned to their families. The galaxy watched these reunions and began to understand something about humanity that they had not fully grasped before. These were not just citizens of a government or members of a species. They were family, and when family was threatened, every human became dangerous. The real message, however, was delivered to the Galactic Council 3 weeks later. Admiral Stone stood before the massive assembly chamber, where representatives from hundreds of species gathered to debate and vote on galactic policy. The chamber, which usually buzzed with conversation and political maneuvering, was completely silent as she approached the central podium. Every being in the room understood that what happened next would shape galactic civilization for centuries to come. "Honored representatives," Admiral Stone began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's advanced acoustics. "For over 2 centuries, humanity has been a productive member of this galactic community. We have followed your laws, respected your customs, and participated in your democratic processes." She paused, letting her words settle in the minds of the assembled delegates. "We chose to be peaceful because we believed in the principles behind galactic civilization. Chief among those principles was the protection of the young. All young. Of every species, it was a rule that made sense. It was a rule that prevented conflicts from becoming wars of total destruction. The chamber remained silent. Even the usual whispered translations and side conversations had stopped. The Zeltharians broke that rule. They took our children and claimed that the old laws no longer applied. In doing so, they reminded us of something that we had almost forgotten about ourselves. Admiral Stone gestured to the holographic displays, showing the aftermath of the human military campaign in Zeltharian space. Destroyed military bases, captured raider ships, and the industrial capacity of an entire species reduced to scrap metal. We are not a naturally peaceful species. We became peaceful by choice, not by evolution. We chose to follow the rules because we believed they would protect everyone's children, not just our own. Her voice grew harder as she continued. But when someone breaks the rule about protecting the young, they remind us what we were before. We reached the stars. They remind us that we evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill us. They remind us that we fought our way to the top of the food chain on a planet that showed no mercy to the weak. The alien delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Many of them came from worlds where evolution had been kinder, where cooperation and intelligence had developed without the constant threat of predation that had shaped humanity. "This is what happens when you break the rule about human young," Admiral Stone said, indicating the tactical displays. "This is what happens when you mistake our civilization for weakness. This is what happens when you forget that beneath our diplomacy and our patience, we are still the apex predators of Earth." She walked closer to the assembled delegates, her eyes moving from one species representative to another. "We are returning to our peaceful ways because that is who we choose to be. We will continue to follow galactic law and participate in this democratic process. But understand this clearly, the rule about human young is not a suggestion. It is not a guideline open to interpretation. It is an absolute law, and if anyone ever forgets that again, we will remind them." The Altarian representative, speaking for the Galactic Council, stood up slowly. "Admiral Stone, on behalf of the assembled species, we acknowledge your message. We also wish to express our gratitude for the restraint shown by human forces in their military response. You could have destroyed the Zeltharian civilization entirely, but you chose to limit your actions to military targets. We are not monsters." Admiral Stone replied, "We do not make war on civilians or non-combatants. But military forces that threaten our children will be destroyed completely and without hesitation." The vote on what became known as the Human Protection Protocol was unanimous. Every species in the galaxy agreed that human young, like the young of all species, were absolutely protected from harm. But the new protocol went further than the old rules. It specifically stated that any violation of this protection would be met with immediate and overwhelming human military response. Without the need for galactic approval or oversight, the children grew up to become leaders, scientists, and explorers. Emma Patterson became a doctor who specialized in treating trauma in young patients. Marcus Johnson joined the Colonial Marines and eventually commanded his own ship. All 12 of them carried with them the knowledge that when they had been in the darkest place imaginable, all of humanity had come for them. The story of their rescue became legend throughout the galaxy. In the academies where young aliens learned about galactic history, they studied the human response as an example of how quickly a peaceful species could become an unstoppable military force when their core values were threatened. In the dark corners of the galaxy, where pirates and raiders gathered to plan their crimes, a new piece of wisdom was passed down from the older criminals to the younger ones. You could steal from humans if you were clever enough. You could fight them if you were strong enough. You could even kill them if you were desperate enough, but you never, ever touch their young because if you did, they would come for you. All of them. Every ship, every soldier, every human in the galaxy would hunt you down. And they would not stop, they would not negotiate, and they would not show mercy until they found you. The 12 children had been saved. But more importantly, the galaxy had learned a lesson that would protect countless other young lives in the centuries to come. The rule about human young was no longer just galactic law. It was a force of nature.